last week's episode, I covered teen violence, mass shooting, and the entertainment industry's role in America's public school systems, and if the FCC was doing enough to regulate public broadcasts on television, radio, and online media. In today's episode, I want to continue that compelling conversation with our guest, Miss Carlina Williams. We'll dive into her powerful role in her career in entertainment. And also, we'll touch bases on questions that you have been asking concerning the online media, mainstream media, and the entertainment industry and its broader impact on our society. So, Miss Carlina, I just want to thank you for coming on today's show. I know you supposed that came previously, but of course there were some things that happened, but I thank you for honoring your word and coming on today. I don't want to disclose too much, but as you know, like I told you last time, she had to go into a medical emergency. As you can see, she has recovered and she is ready for today's show, guys. So let's dive in. And Miss Carlina, tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do and how you got into the entertainment industry.
Ooh, okay. So I guess I will start, in that order. So a little bit about me is my name is Carlina Williams. As was stated, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and then I went to the University of Florida and got my bachelor's in media management. And then most recently, my master's in international business. And now I am a visiting lecturer at the University of Florida. Let's talk a little bit about what happened before that, what got me to being a professor at the University of Florida, UF. So when I graduated with my bachelor's, my first job was actually working at CBS in research and analytics, so doing pilot and episode testing for new shows. Then I went on to work at Disney, working on movies like Zootopia and Moana as a production coordinator, and then became an associate producer in the Imagineering department on their podcast. So shout out to podcasts. I love you guys for doing this. And called Inside Imagineering, which they eventually turned into a Disney Plus series. So that's to encourage people, like, even though you start on a podcast, you never know how it can inspire and transpire into something new. So that's my
right.
deal there. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to go more into development. So I became a development assistant at Universal Pictures, working on movies like Jurassic, Pitch Perfect, some of their icons. And then, they're known for their horror films too. So, yep. And shout out to Black Phone. And then from there, I went on to work at Nickelodeon, working on Transformers, Big Nate, Casagrande. So back to kids programming. And then most recently, I was the executive on Coco Melon. So for those of you who have kids, you're welcome for distracting them.
Wow. Nice. I mean, that's a good, I guess you can say, like, just a buildup, right?
Yeah.
So you've taken all these steps to pretty much get your career where you wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And it's a very beautiful thing. Did you always want to have a career in entertainment? I mean, or did you know that that's what you wanted to do, or, how did that work?
Okay. It's so funny. I always tell people, absolutely not. That is not what I thought, which makes no sense because growing up all my life, I've been a theater kid. So I was like in choirs and performing with different casts. I remember we performed with the cast of The Lion King on Broadway. So I've always been a performer growing up and in art schools and editing videos and I never thought I was going to get in that industry, which makes no sense. I actually wanted to be an aerospace engineer and work for NASA. I wanted to be an astronaut. That was my thing. That's what I got into school for. It was for aerospace engineering, actually, at the University of Florida. And then I switched when NASA lost its funding back then. I think they're still trying to regain it. But from there, it was just like, what do? I have all these math and science credits. And people were like, what else do you like to do? And I was like, I love entertainment. I like to watch TV. And so that's how I got into the research part. Cooking with Carlina, which everybody knows, thank you so much, started because a friend, she had a private chef that didn't show up and she had all this food and she's like, you're the only friend I know who knows how to cook. So I cook it and people were like, this is really good. Do you have a YouTube channel? And I was like, no. And it started. And I like to call Carlina, Cooking with Carlina, my beautiful accident, because that's what led to me getting my job at Disney for Zootopia Moana. So for those of you
Nice.
YouTubers out there, your own content can lead to a new opportunity. So keep that in mind.
Did you guys hear that? Say that again, Miss Carlina.
For you YouTubers out there, your content can lead to another opportunity on a major platform.
Yes. And to be honest with you, that's how I found out about Miss Carlina, about her cooking show. I was just scrolling through YouTube, never heard of her before, and it pops up. And so I was like, this is interesting. And so I went on LinkedIn, started diving in, heard about her story. I said, oh, I got to have her on the show. I got to have her on the show because I myself, just in case you didn't know this, guys, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a little kid. I literally wanted to be an astronaut. I didn't know why. I don't know if it was something I saw on TV. I don't know what it was, but it's funny. Before my mother passed away, she said the same thing when she was a kid. She wanted to be an astronaut. And then before that, it's so funny. My grandmother had come to find out actually worked at NASA. Now she worked for a menial position, but at the same time she worked at NASA. So it's just funny how we go these routes, but I ended up in entertainment just like she did. So, but I was doing like more of the short films and, more of the background work and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny, right? But now it led me to, like she said, your beautiful accident. And that was her beautiful accident. This is my beautiful accident. So it's just funny how all of that is intertwined. And we didn't even know each other, guys. And so you never know who you meet. You never know what you come across. And so thank you for sharing that with us today, Miss Carlina. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. So we're gonna dive right on into this interview. Again, just sharing with people a little bit about you and how you got started and where you came from. I want to touch on the basis of social issues. Of course, you know that because
Mhm.
this platform is about, of course, talking about business, culture, politics, and sometimes even religion. But I like to hit on the social issues on how we can make things better. Because,
Mhm.
when we work in these industries, we learn so much. There are a lot of positives. We're so, passionate about the things that we do and the skills that we learn. But it's not like we walk through life and don't see the negatives, or maybe the things, maybe not so much negatives, but at least the things we know that can be better, and that can, whether that's things in race relations or whether that's ethical things or whatever it may be. I only allow my guests to get as deep as they want to. I get deep because that's who I am and that's what my show about. But I allow them to, talk about the things that they want to talk about. And so one of the questions I want to have for you today, because I saw that there are people who it's journalists, it's entertainers, as far as the entertainment industry, working as producers and stuff like that. Not so much entertainers, but there are people searching for questions, on what people are looking for, and one of the things pop up is ethics and issues and the impact on entertainment industry and how it affects society. And so I would like for you to, from your standpoint of working in the industry, because when I grew up, we didn't have all of what we have today. There was no such thing as social media. All we had was ABC, NBC, and then the radio. I'm older than you, but I'm almost 50. So that's what we had, you know. And today it's grown from that. We have online, we have, influencers, we have all kind of stuff. And of course, you don't have to go to school and learn skills to be an influencer. But that doesn't mean that you don't have some great influences out there. But of course, there are people that's just putting stuff out there and it's not only is it not truthful, but it's not always ethical. And so, how would you address that as a person who's professional? Because again, your background, you've been to college. You not only been to college, you work in the professional, you know what I'm saying, as a professional, and how would you address that? What would be some of your insight from that standpoint? Bias or you know understand what I'm saying? Not in the vein that you would have in a professional way. So
Mhm.
I'm asking you, like, how do you feel that those issues can be addressed today in a more ethical, social way with
On social
this mass platform that we have today? And even in mainstream media, it's more gossip based than it is more fact based, so like, how do you see that today when it comes to the entertainment world and the world
Yeah,
of media?
when it comes to the responsibility of being ethical, especially on social media, or what I would say, whatever platform you're on, if you're on
Mhm.
television or in film, when you graduate from a college of journalism and communications, like ethics is first, and fact
Mhm.
checking is very important. You need to check your facts before doing anything. And then what I teach my students is you need to be sensitive of what you say might affect others. So you can tell the truth, but remember they always say it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So you need to be cautious of that. And that's just something I would encourage everybody of all ages, because, everyone thinks social media is young. There's all different ages on there. Just be
Mhm.
mindful and put out positive content. But if you are going to state your opinion on something, just make
Mhm.
sure you have all the facts outlined. So when somebody questions you on your beliefs and things like that, that you have data proof to stand and back you up. A lot of people don't. It's just like, I think
That's
this,
right. That's
and they
right.
don't have,
That's
I'm like,
why I asked
okay,
that question, because I
yeah,
wanted to see, because of course this particular content is for those who are searching for those types of answers. And that's why I asked that question, because it's important. A lot of people are not putting even our organizations are starting to not put the facts out there. And when I went to journalism school at the University of North Texas, and Richland, the community college, one thing we were taught not only the inverted pyramid, but we were taught or information. We were taught the ethics. Make sure you're, like you said, putting the facts out there, but we were also taught it wasn't about our opinions as journalists. It was literally about, what is the story? When you're interviewing someone, they're given the story and you leave your opinion out and you let the public judge. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's literally how we were taught in our traditional, journalism class. But when I look at media today, you really kind of don't see that no more. Everybody's like all over the place. Like, everybody is like, and I went to school not too long ago. It's not like way back in the day, because I went to school late. So I went to the school in 2000, like 11. You see what I'm saying? So, but when I look at social media, not social media, I'm sorry, like all of the think tanks today, the major ones, CNN, all this, they've actually gotten away from. This is just me talking now. This is not Miss Carlina, guys. So I don't want you to say she's saying. This is me talking and what I'm seeing. And I don't know if she's seeing it, but I know everybody's seeing it. That's why everybody's talking about it. Like, they don't just like allow the story to be told and allow people to like think for themselves. It's like now people are literally giving journalists, reporters, we're not talking about commentary. We're talking about just giving, like their opinions, because of how they feel and how they think. But again, when I went to journalism school, we were taught not to do that. And I'm not a journalist on my platform. I'm doing something totally different. But as journalists, I remember those skills we were taught. So that's why I wanted to ask you those questions, because it's causing a lot of division. It's causing a lot of uproar. Just like if you just saw the Trump, what was that, Trump and Kamala, I'm sorry, interview, right? According to a lot of people, they felt that ABC wasn't being fair. Now, they felt that they were cutting a particular candidate off and kind of like, swaying it a little bit. I've always seen that kind of, it depends on who they like and who they don't like. I don't think it's so much of what people think it is, but there used to be a time they would try to stick to fact base, allowing people to, like when the reporter will report and ask questions, allowing people to speak, you understand what I'm saying? And then allowing the public to judge. Their job was just to give the information. They were the think tanks and they gave the information. So, but now everybody's got their opinion. You even hear some people calling people like, you know, liars, or this or that. Like, it's kind of getting like kind of crazy. So that's why I wanted to ask that question. Now in your career of entertainment, when you're dealing with I know you've dealt with children, right?
Yeah.
And you've dealt with making content, is that correct, with children and stuff like that? I want to make sure I'm saying it right. uh
Creating children's programming.
yeah, creating children's programming. Number one, what is your passion behind that? So I want to ask that question first. What motivates you to do that when you're working with children?
Oh, what inspired me to create children's
Hmm.
programming?
Hmm.
Um, Growing up as a kid and watching what's on television, realizing how much that inspired me to be who I am. One of my favorite shows growing up was Arthur, and it was because Arthur was so rooted in his family. And honestly, if you think about Arthur, he just wanted to be a good friend to his friends. And
Hmm.
that's what I continue to do and aspire to be. So it was very simple back then, but it really shaped kind of who you are. What you watch shaped out what kind of person you either A, wanted to be, or B, who you were, and validated that. So realizing how much power children's programming has in cultivating the future, I wanted to
Hmm.
make sure that I was involved in helping to create positive programming that people can continue to watch for decades to come, and we can continue creating amazing citizens in our society.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to touch a little bit on that. And I'm so glad you brought that up because the video I made previously, as you know, it was about school shootings, violence, and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I'm so glad you said that because when I grew up, I'm going to be honest with you, I can name pretty much every show we watched when I grew up. We watched Cosby's 227, Archie Bunker. I still remember those shows right now today. I remember Archie. You remember? I don't know if you was that younger, that old. Yes, girl.
I don't
But
remember.
anyway, Three's Company, just all these shows, right? And sometimes they would incorporate political themes or current events and stuff like that. But it was in such a good positive way to where you didn't go to bed at nighttime and think about images. And I'm talking about public television now. I'm not talking about cable. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cable is you get what you pay for. I'm talking about public radio station, public, and you could lay down at night. You didn't see all the shooting and all that kind of stuff. I remember Murder She Wrote. There was not all blood all over the place and just gruesome things, all of the things that we see today. And I'm so glad you brought that up because all of that positive content, even though it wasn't perfect, Carlina, you understand what I'm saying? It's made me who I am today and why I address these issues today. You understand what I'm saying? Because I
I
see
do.
the dynamics and the change. I see how we went from a society that we all listen, Carlina, they've always had adult entertainment around. It was called Blockbuster. I don't even know if you remember that. But Blockbuster was a major chain in America. When I say major, I mean major. And at that time, they were cassette tapes, right? But time does evolve. So they were cassette tapes at the time. And so you could not walk in Blockbuster and rent out adult stuff. You just couldn't. It's like alcohol. They would ask for your ID. You had to be a certain age to have over content that was over cursing. You understand what I'm saying? Over
Mhm.
vulgar, over certain types of things. Now you can turn on the television and hear the word bitch. You can hear all kind of stuff. And so that's why I'm so glad you said that because I do think it's important that you separate uh you keep the public things sacred. You understand what I'm saying? I do believe that's important. Maybe everybody may not agree with me, but for your great content producers, you understand what I'm saying, who are out there because they've been searching for this information. There have been parents searching for it. And I do believe that we should keep sacred things sacred. And for those who want more adult themes, that's where your HBOs come in at. You understand what I'm saying? Your Cinemaxes come in at. And I think we need to kind of revamp on how we do things because they say, well, what do they have to do with school shootings and this and this and that? As I mentioned in my last video, from the 80s, go look it up. You didn't have all those school shootings, but you didn't have all that stuff on television either. Like you
Mhm.
can't even watch a cop show without a cop killing someone. And why you think everybody always paranoid about cop shootings when you walk outside your door every day? Tell me when the last time you saw a cop shooting someone. Be honest with yourself. You understand what I'm saying? But it's so ingrained in our society that that's all that's on television is a cop. When do you make a cop show where there's no killing or no shooting and it's something positive? You understand what I'm saying? You may got to take down somebody, you may got to wrestle somebody, but does it always have to be about shooting? So that's what I mean by, how do we get back to that space of we make sacred things sacred where families used to sit down and watch movies together and shows together and it wasn't so much violence, so much sexual promiscuity. You understand what I'm saying? Now you turn on the TV, ooh, they pulling off the t-shirt, ooh, oochie coochie, the sheets, butt cheek. You be like, boo. Boo, when did this start being on ABC, NBC? You understand what I'm saying? And not to knock those channels, because I grew up off those channels. It's not a show that I cannot name that I didn't watch. We didn't have cable when I was little. I grew up in the project, so we had to watch public television. You understand what I'm saying? We had to listen to, but that's why I love to talk about that because I remember not to say, because a lot of people say you can't, things have changed. I know things have changed, but that doesn't mean as a nation that our morals and principles and foundations have to change. And back then you don't think they didn't have porn? Back then you don't think that they didn't have adult themes? But it was more monitoring and more respect. You understand what I'm saying? Like they didn't allow it to the children and the youth and all that kind of stuff. So I just wish that there were people who took more consideration into that and understood that that does affect people because like you just said it yourself. It shaped how you think about family. It shapes how you think, you know what I'm saying? And why you started getting into that career and why you started doing the things you do. And if people don't think that these things don't affect us, man, I still remember Incredible Hulk. Not the cartoon, but the original. I still remember Wonder Woman. And it do shape your mind and your thinking because those were positive shows. And so when now you have all this negative and all this shooting and killing, if you don't think this affect young people, I think you're kind of sadly wrong because it is shaping them. All the music, all the cursing and the violence, and you know, it's all they're growing up to know. You got babies that are on YouTube twerking in their diapers. They're so I just wanted to touch on that. And I think that's very important. So but to move on from that, Miss Carlina, in your career, looking at the youth today and then looking at the dynamics of what's going on, what would be your greatest advice to those who are going to come behind you all and they're going to take up a career in entertainment? What would be, out of what you've experienced in entertainment, what would be the best advice that you feel that you could leave them?
Mm. Well, to piggyback off of what I've said, just being
Mhm.
influenced by the amazing kids programming I grew up with, I would
Mhm.
say continue to stay true to who you are. First of all, know who you are and stay true to who you are because as long as whatever career path you have aligns with your values, you're going to be happy. There have been
Mhm.
times where I felt like the job didn't align with my values and I was wondering like why it's not the money, it's not this and it just didn't align with who I was or who I was starting to become. So I had to switch gears and pivot. And I want people to know like that's okay. It doesn't matter what age you are when you decide to pivot or when you recognize it. Make the shift. Don't be afraid to change. Life is all about change. You're not meant to stay in the same place every day. And for people who say, well, there are people who are in the same job for decades. Yes, but trust me, they're constantly growing within that job and learning something new. This change doesn't have to be physical. It could be mental, it could be spiritual. So just think about it that way. And
Mm-hmm.
number two is surround yourself with positive people who not only uplift you, but who can bring constructive criticism to whatever you're working on in a considerate manner, if that makes sense. Because you don't want, unfortunately, we see a lot of yes people in the industry, and they're just like, everything's great, everything's rainbows and butterflies. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need to let people know, like, this is what you could do better, this is what you can work on.
That's right.
And honesty, I think,
That's
is
right.
kind of leaving our society, which is a sad thing for me. We need to be honest with one another. We need to let each
Mm-hmm.
other know what we can work on and be better with. Because isn't that the one thing you go to your doctor and your lawyer for, is honesty? If they
That's
just told
right.
you everything is
That's
great with
right.
your body and it's not, you're going to press a lawsuit, right? Pretty much.
Come on now. Come on
So
now.
why aren't we doing that in the entertainment industry? You need to let people know,
That's
oh, I'm afraid to hurt their feelings. Well, hurt their feelings. They're going to get better. There's
and
plenty of
that
more.
Carlina, that goes back to what you said originally. Be careful how you say things, and sometimes people get offended. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you say it nicely, Carlina, you understand what I'm saying? That's why I agree with you. You have to be true to who you are,
Mhm.
because you can say it rudely if you want to, because sometimes people like bash you and stuff like that. Sometimes you gotta, I don't mean telling people to say anything rudely. What I'm trying to say is that you can say it rudely, or you can say it nicely. And I'm here to tell you that even if you say it nicely, there are going to be people who get offended. Like, they just going to get offended, like there are going to be some people that's not going to agree with your morals, and they're not going to agree with your values and what you do. And they're going to get offended, but you can't fold because of that. You understand what I'm saying? And to piggyback off of what you're saying, like, isn't that what we're here for? To make each other better, not to degrade each other and keep putting derogatory things out into the universe, but to make each other better. You understand what I'm saying? And even in the entertainment industry, or in media, like, it's iron sharpen iron, like they say. You know what I'm saying? And if we can see, like you said, sometimes it's not always physical. Sometimes it's mental and spiritual. And so how do we make each other better, on those levels like that? So I'm glad I'm having this conversation with you, really. And
Oh,
I'm
thank
glad
you.
you are touching those points. Uh, you're really touching those points. Like, it's important. And especially for the youth coming up, because they're not growing up in a culture um where things were so kind of conservative. They're growing more up in a culture where everything is out open in your face. And so they have to walk this journey where they have decisions that they have to make on who they're going to be, and what their moral code is going to be. They wasn't given the opportunity um to learn the values. You understand what I'm saying? Like, they were born into this world of what it was at that time frame. So
Mhm.
let me give you an example of what I'm saying. Like, I'm almost 50. So I was born during the era I was born in. You understand what I'm saying? So I know what I know. And I was exposed to what I was exposed to. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You were born in the era you were born in, and you're exposed to what you're exposed to. Now, this generation coming up, they're born to what they're exposed to. And unfortunately, Miss Carlina, they are born into a lot of violence. They're born into a lot of music. There used to be a time you wouldn't dare hear the music that you hear when we were growing up. The most you heard was Prince and Madonna when it came to sexual things, you know what I'm saying? MTV, BT, and a little booty shaking. But now it's like butt nakedness, it's lasciviousness, it's all of this. So what I mean by that, they're not given the opportunity. They're exposed. So it's going to be a norm for them. You understand what I'm saying? Like it's natural. Like who's to say, it's natural is what I'm saying. So they're not given the opportunity to have a diet between what would be my moral code versus, what my culture has exposed me to. So that's why I think that's important that these conversations are had, you know. I do. So yeah.
Amazing.
But continue on.
Oh no, I was gonna make sure you got all your questions because I know I want to be
No,
mindful of time because with everything.
no, I'm fine. Continue on, continue on. Um, so yeah, and it's good that you're giving advice to the youth. And what advice would you give to not just the youth now? What advice do you have, like as far as career advice,
Mhm.
or any type of advice? Like how do you? Because I knew you said you want to talk about mental health, right? So
Sure.
how do you intertwine mental health in our society today when it comes to the entertainment industry? Do you
Oh.
believe that the entertainment industry or media has an effect on mental health, or do you believe that maybe it's the public's responsibility when it's concerning their mental health? Like how do you think about that?
Mm. I
Because I know you
know
said you
the
wanted to touch on that. So yeah.
yeah, I think the media gets blamed for a lot of people's mental health, and we have to start taking responsibility because the media doesn't put your phone in your hand or the remote
Mhm.
in your hand and tell you what channels to watch. So
Mhm.
I will say that, start off with that. I think we have to take some responsibility for what we watch and what we do and what notifications we have on, who you follow, etc. So I
Mhm.
will mention that. However, if you are watching, a positive programming and a not so positive ad comes on, that's where I think the media can be responsible for certain things.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword for me. Like it really, really depends. But you are responsible. I learned from like a past mentor, it was really important. If you don't take care of you, nobody else will. So you're responsible for you and you need to
Mhm.
control as much as you can. I think a lot of people like to play the blame game, but you have to take responsibility for your actions too.
That's
There
true.
there's a time where our ancestors, they didn't even have media, to be honest. Like they were writing letters or reading newspapers. And to control that, if they didn't want to read the newspaper that day, they didn't have to.
That's
They
right.
can go ahead and just live on their life.
That's right.
I know it's rare, but I know some people who don't even watch the news. They don't do anything because they want to protect their mental health, and that's fair. But
That's
they put
right.
that in their control. That's so. What I do want to let people and listeners know is that you still have control over who you are and who you want to become. And as
Mhm.
long as you know who you are, no one else is going to influence that. You can hang out with somebody who has like a completely different ideology than you. Be respectful and listen to what they have to say. But if you know who you are, no matter what they say is going to change who you are.
Yeah.
So,
And to say what you're saying, uh, this statement, I'm gonna throw this statement at you, and then you tell me what you think. It takes a village to raise the child. What do you think about that?
hmm. I think that's where I think I would go back to my earlier statement, which is, make sure you have a circle you can trust. I guess we can say that's similar to your village,
Mhm.
in influencing you. But
Mhm.
again, different factors can influence who you are when you're younger. So I guess going back to the child part,
Yeah.
but once you've established kind of who you are, and
Mhm.
I would encourage everybody to just sit in a room by yourself on a Saturday because you don't have to work, you don't have to interact with anybody, and just sit there with your thoughts, and you're really going to find out who you are.
That's right.
Most people can't sit for more than 10 minutes. I think there's like something out there where it's like just meditate for 10 minutes a day, and people can't even do that. So if
Yeah.
you sit for like a whole day, you're going to be like, man, I didn't even know
Yeah.
I like that. I didn't even know I like this. I didn't even like that person. I don't like this job. You're going to realize a lot about yourself because you don't have
Exactly.
anything from the outside telling you what to do. It's just you and your
Exactly.
thoughts. So going back into once you know who you are, then surround yourself with the people who match and can encourage who you want to be. They don't have to have the
Okay.
same beliefs or ideology as you, but they're
Okay.
supportive in who you want to believe, who you
Y'all
want to
hear
be.
that, guys? Yeah. And the reason why I asked that, because you've worked with child content before,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
So a child is different from, um, you know, when it comes to children, youth, and teens, they're different from adults and young adults. You see what I'm saying? And the reason why I say it takes a village to raise a child is because there's a dynamic here. When you start becoming an adult, you cannot blame people for who you becoming and what you decide to do, right? I do agree with that. But I also agree the reason why it takes a village to raise a child is because in our society, if your child doesn't go to school, you're going to go to jail. So, number one, when your children are away from home, your children have to go to school. So, that's what I mean by it takes a village to raise a child. So, that means that the adults have to be responsible for what they are putting inside the schools, right? Right, because at that time, the parents are not raising them. The adults at the schools are raising them, even though the parents are doing it at home. And then when the children go out to the public and they're dealing with, let's just say they in soccer, they in sports, they're in all kind of things, or maybe things like ballet or classes and stuff like that, you're unfortunately the parents don't get to always be there, and neither do they allow these parents to sit in the class up like that. You understand what I'm saying? They just don't. I trust me, I've been to the top schools, all that kind of, they not gonna let them parents sit. They just don't. The kids go in there, they have to drop them off. So that's what I mean by it takes a village. You understand what I'm saying? So people are responsible for how they dealing with these children. So to go back to the media, you understand what I'm saying? It is, I know that you can't blame the media for everything, but when it comes to the public broadcast, you understand what I'm saying? I do think that the media do need to take, and I'm not talking about the media, I'm really talking about more of the regulators. You understand what I'm saying? I do believe that there needs to be responsibility because it does take a village. You understand what I'm saying? It really does. People may not want to admit that or not, just like there are people that don't want to admit you can't blame the media for everything. You're a big grown adult, but you also can't blame parents for everything. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody else for everything when you're not doing your part either. You understand what I'm saying? And when I say you, I'm talking about mainstream regulators, all this kind of stuff, because it is, unfortunately, kids are not with their parents. You wasn't with your parent 24 hours a day, and neither was I. We had to go to school. There were things unless you pay for public schools, and even in public schools, Catholic schools, we know if you ever been to Catholic school, we know everything ain't holy, baby. When you're away from your parents, you understand what I'm saying? So it really does take a village for what's being placed on public. I'm not talking about cable. I'm not talking about you buying, CDs or tapes or whatever USBs. I'm talking about public broadcast. And I do believe that it really does. There needs to be some regulation there because it is out of control. I don't care what nobody say, it's out of control. Everybody can see it. Everybody's talking about it, So, and then there are those who feel don't censor people, and censorship. Some people mention like if you talk to the FCC, they talk about the First Amendment right? So let me give you an example. You have a little child, you have children, and you have a little child, and I'm walking by, right? And I'm cursing, I'm being vulgar in front of the child, I'm doing anything I want to do. And then you haul out and you look, you know what I'm saying? You like, wait a minute, there are kids here. And I bust out and say, it's my First Amendment right to express myself. You're going to say, no, ma'am, it's not your First Amendment right to just do any and everything you want to do. And so it is when you look at public broadcasts and when you look at these things, people will argue, don't censor the artists, don't censor this and that. It's our First Amendment right. You understand what I'm saying? But yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's a
I
dynamic.
want to kind of
Go
stop
ahead.
you right there because I know I have like 5 minutes left, and I'm so
You
sorry.
fine, sweetheart. You fine.
I did put the link for you to share with your listeners later. The FCC actually does have very strict rules for children's programming.
Not
Everybody
children's programming. I'm talking about ABC. I'm talking about the public broadcast and public radio.
Yeah, so
So
there
yeah.
is in that link you'll see is they have to, that's where I know you probably remember growing up with Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that kind of came from the FCC's rules and having to provide a certain amount of time of children's programming per week for
Yeah.
audience. So those rules are still there. So I do want to encourage
Yeah.
your audience and listeners, like that is
Yeah.
still being, it just depends if some people are listening to those rules or not.
Yeah.
But I do want to know that they are there in place. So
Yeah. 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 Because there are things like there are cartoons, if you really want to be honest, that are teaching children how to practice witchcraft and put spells on people. I mean, so if you just really want to be honest, it gets that deep like that. Like it gets that deep. And so that's what I mean by where is the balance of the morality, like when it comes to entertainment. You understand what I'm saying? Like if a parent wants to teach their child that privately, some parents may want to teach their children that. But when it comes to public, education, when it comes to cartoons and stuff like that, you have to be careful, you know. So, but yeah, I thank you for coming on and I thank you for making this, I thank you that we're able to have this discussion, and I'm hoping that people can see that there is a difference between certain types of entertainment and even certain types of journalism and all kind of stuff. There's a difference between commentary journalism versus reporting. And reporting, you stick to the facts. You understand what I'm saying? And you let the public tell the story on how they choose to think. Now, when you're doing commentary, it's a little bit different, but there are still ethical guidelines and stuff like that. And I believe that we should really get back to that. I know that we have a lot of media and things have changed and technology has changed, but that doesn't mean that technology should change our principles and the morals and the foundations that we should stand on as a nation. And so I just want to end it with that. And Miss Carlina, is there anything that you would like to end it with?
I just want to encourage people to continue being who you are and loving who you are and surrounding yourself with positive people.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you believe, whatever you want to do, you have that right to do and be who you want to be
Mm-hmm.
and listen and do what you want to watch, but just stay positive, keep reaching for the skies. You could do it. Like I said, if you're a YouTuber, podcaster, if your dream is to be on television, streaming, whatever you want to do, you've got it, and keep going. That's it.
Yes, that's right. So again, thank you so much. Is there anything that I didn't get to ask you that you would like to share? Because it's not about my audience, it's about the public. Like I don't have an audience. I don't consider myself to have an audience. Like I don't think about my platform like other people think my audience, my this, my that. I think about the world and what they looking for, what some parents are looking for, what are the I think about things that can make us better as humans. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's not my audience, it's not my people or anything. I don't believe in that kind of control. And I'm just saying maybe there's something you want to share with people and share with the world. And is there anything that I didn't get to ask that you would love to share? And I ask everybody that, so yeah.
Oh, no worries.
Mhm.
I guess I feel like no matter who I was talking to, I think what I said applies to everybody out there.
Mhm.
Stay focused and work what you want to work on, and just make sure your values align with whoever you're working with, and you're going to
Mhm.
be happy in life and where you want to go.
Okay then. Okay then. Um, is there any last career advice that you would like to leave about the entertainment world? I think you've hit on it. I think you touched on it. But is there any other insight that you would like to give? And if not, we'd be closing out.
No, that's it. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you. Hi there. So I want to leave you with these last words. I really want you to understand this one thing. This platform is not about censorship. This platform is about having diverse perspectives, letting people express themselves. I express myself, and then trying to find the balance of where do we understand that there's a moral code underlining all things that we do in this earth? You know, we just can't have where it's just so explicit and so lasciviousness. And we just can't have like it's just so pure that we deny that we don't have evil and corruption in our world, right? So I am so glad that I had this interview today. And I am so glad that hopefully the audience will understand what TCLN is all about, what the Critical Line Network is all about. And me as the founder and the creator and host of that show and that media is helping people to understand that we can have media and we can have platforms and we can have careers. And if we decide that we want to go to the extreme of all the dark parts and all the dark spaces, we have to understand that a lot of times everybody can't handle that. And you have to be careful what you're putting out there. You have to be careful of the influences you're putting out there. So if you notice, that's why I said FCC and the regulation of what is being regulated and monitored through cartoons, because as she brought up where the FCC do have strict guidelines. They have them, but just like we have laws, are they being enforced? Because when you have cartoons on television and in the media and on cable that is teaching children how to put spells on people, I don't think that that's being regulated, you guys. No child should be taught that. Now I'm finna get into my commentary on you. No child should ever be taught in any books. This is me talking, guys, whether you agree with me or not. Any books, any media, any of that. Your child should be taught the foundation and the principles of what's going to make them better human beings. Whether you agree with me or not, that's fine. I didn't ask you to. But I'm going to have my commentary at the end of the day because that's what TCLN is all about. Building us up, making us better Americans, not making us deplorable and making us just ratchet and people who we're not designed to be. You know, nations are looking at us, even though they do wrong and immoral things too. But it has gotten so bad that it has overflowed into our media. There was a time people used to look at our media and respect us. They respect our reporting. They respect our way of living. Now they look at us and laugh, you know. And so if you don't think that these things don't affect us, you're sadly wrong. You're sadly wrong. They do, guys. They do. And so that's what TCLN is all about. I'm not here to compete with the big dogs. I'm not even here to do what the big dogs do. They do what they do well. You understand me? They have gotten off track though. I've been watching them ever since I've been a kid. And like Dan Rather said, sweetheart, it's taken a turn. I remember there used to be a time they did fact checking, they did all this kind of stuff. And now in journalism, child, they telling you their opinion, they cutting off people conversation, they doing all kind of crazy stuff. So, and we know it because we the public see it. So don't think that we don't see it, you guys. We do. And so, but that's where I come in at. You know, I come in as saying, you know what? I understand how morals are important. Integrity is important. Foundations are important. And when you just throw them away and you just want a lasciviousness, grotesqueness, any and everything, and you just think telling people be who you want to be, well, being an unethical and an unmoral person that's not good for our America and that's not good for society. So that's why I wanted to come on and say, hey, if you want to create butt naked booty stripping BHs and HHs, and that's fine. Nobody wants to censor you. What we saying is that should never be on your public radios. That should never be on mainstream. That should be adult entertainment. If you want to teach children how to do witchcraft, that should be to each its own. That should be to the parents who want that and who want to teach their children that. That should not be for everybody because as you can see, you got children sitting up in prison talking about Satan told them to shoot somebody. Or the devil told them to shoot somebody. So guys, you got to take responsibility. I'm sorry. Whether you agree with me or not, okay, you heard her conversation about how Arthur influenced her. You heard my conversation about all the shows I watched. Was either one of those shows perfect? Absolutely not. They themselves have dysfunctional in it because you have dysfunctional human beings with great ideas trying to make great things happen. So not to say that those platforms were perfect, but they wasn't so ratchet either, guys. You understand what I'm saying? And they both affected our lives. Arthur affected her own family. Some of the shows affected me, it affected me towards morality. It affected me towards thinking about when I watched the Cosbys, what did I see? I saw a loving family. I saw a prestigious family that was doing well. When I watched 227, what did I see? I saw college students hashing out their issues. When I watched Archie Bunker, what did I see? I saw political themes. You understand what I'm saying? That will be interwoven from CNN and all these shows into that, and people giving their opinions. But I never went to bed at night thinking about who I was going to shoot and kill. I never went to bed at night having such horrible images in my head from all the stuff I seen that day. You understand what I'm saying? So I think sometimes people need to kind of get back to, and then when we started getting into the era of BET and MTV, where you had the booty shaking and the more sexual stuff like that, if you notice in the 80s, that's when our culture started shifting into the 90s. What happened? You had a lot of sexual violence. You've always had these things, guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying be lazy and blame everything on media. What I'm saying is don't be in denial and act like media is not an influence, okay? Because things do shift. Because what happened? What did happen? You hear, what is her name that used to own BET? What was her name? Everybody, you know her. She used to go look up who originally owned BET, the Johnsons, right? So you hear Miss Johnson say it all the time, even though she's not over BET no more. She's over Sandler Matter and she's doing other things. You heard her say it herself. When BET started shifting to where they was doing all these degrading things, she tried to bring a positive show for teens because she knew just how much that affected, right? So that's why you had Teen Summit, where they could discuss sex without being vulgar and discuss how they were suffering and instead of all the booty shaking. So don't think that media is not powerful. Don't be so, have a balance is what I'm saying. Don't blame the media for everything, especially if you're adults, but also don't act like it don't take a child to raise a village, and be responsible for the media that's being put out. And with that being said, guys, I hope y'all understand my heart. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I'm just giving you the best of both worlds. Blessings. Leave your comments below, engage, and also tell me what you think. Tell us what you think. Tell the public what you think. Have, as Dan Rather say, friends, be bold and courageous. Be bold and courageous. Don't sit back scared you're going to say something, scared somebody going to look at your career in a bad way. It's too many people out there doing good, y'all. They're not afraid. They're not afraid. And they're getting paid from big time platforms. So they may not be like, bashing or nothing like that, like they do on social media. But they're out there, guys. So learn how to do that and learn how to be courageous, learn how to be bold, because the next generation's coming up. They're going to need you guys. Blessings, blessings, blessings. If you can support this channel financially, please do. PayPal is in the description and also Cash App me. And those finances will definitely go towards this content. And like, share, you understand? Have discussions about it. If you want to further this discussion, contact me. The email is in the description below. And let's just keep the conversation going, okay? Blessings. Bye-bye.